Hello again, I'm Robert Fithen, and here we are. We have made it. This is the final video in the long journey through 1983. Chronologically, yeah, it's been quite the journey. I've had a lot of fun listening to some of these albums I haven't heard in a long time, and of course discovering some that I had never heard before. Hopefully you've had just as much, or maybe at least, I don't know, a third of the amount of fun that I've had joining me on this long trip through 1983, and it has finally come to its conclusion with this final video as we are in the middle of December of 1983. And it's time to talk about the band SSQ and their release called Playback. SSQ was the band where Stacy Q started, and of course she later, right after this album, this is the only SSQ album I think there is until like one-off thing way in the like 2020s or something. So basically this is their only album. And so she then goes and starts releasing things under the name Stacy Q as a solo artist, but still the people in this group are with her on those other albums as well. But this one has a little bit of difference. The only thing you know Stacy Q from is that Two of Hearts song. That is much more like high energy dance club type of stuff that they went with on albums after this. This album is a much more sensual kind of synth pop. It's definitely 1983 synth pop. There's no doubt about that. The very first track is called Syntheside, and I think that was the single, and it's extremely catchy. I think it could have become a really big, catchy hit, but it's called Syntheside. That's kind of a provocative kind of title, and she says that repeatedly in the song. I don't know why they didn't name it something else. I don't know what Syntheside is. I can imagine, but it doesn't seem like that's what the song's about. Somebody ending their own thing by a keyboard. I don't know. Anyway, it's extremely catchy, and it's a great way to start this album off, and it gave me high hopes for what is to follow. Now, there are some peaks and valleys on here. They do keep it interesting, though, with some different kind of things going on here. There's a nice instrumental, basically an instrumental. She just repeats the title over and over again, and the title is Clockwork. There's also more sensuous kind of stuff. The album wraps up with this song that's all in French, and she's just singing in her sexiest voice possible while this synth music plays on. It kind of reminds me, the album kind of reminds me of Berlin. It's that same sort of thing. It's not as hard synth as they get, but it is this kind of, thing that would be playing in the background of like an 80s softcore movie type of thing. Especially other songs like Anonymous. That's a really, just really conjures up images, and then the song Screaming in My Pillow is another one. And I'm listening to that one and I'm like, now, I've heard this before. And this definitely sounds sexy. This sounds sensual, and then I'm thinking, there's a video for this. Wait, I know what this is. And then I look online for the video. There it is. And yes, Screaming in My Pillow is a song, is a music video. That's why I'm wearing the Friday Night Videos shirt, even though this video was definitely never on Friday Night Videos. But usually I'm wear this shirt throughout the series, and I wanted to wear it on the last episode here, but there aren't really... The only time I wear this shirt is when I'm talking about an album that's filled with songs that I used to see music videos on Friday Night Videos, and then I would wear this shirt. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but the shirts kind of go with a lot of the albums, and the Friday Night Videos one would be songs that I saw on Friday Night Videos. But I don't have any of those in this last episode, so I wanted to wear it one more time for 1983, and I thought this would be a good one because I remember the music video for Screaming in My Pillow, even though, as I said, it definitely never played on Friday Night Videos. It was on a VHS called Red Hot Rock. And what that was were videos that were too hot for MTV. Used to have a video, the video magazine was called Music Video. Used to be out in like 83, 84, and they every week would have little stills of music videos that wouldn't get played on MTV or were heavily censored on MTV. This one, I don't know if it was ever on MTV or not, but it was on this videotape called Too Hot, Red Hot Rock. And, full-on nudity. Including Stacy Q, who goes, muff out. And I'm not talking about a silhouette. Did she show, is that a half a nipple? No, I'm talking on the bed, making out with another woman. They're both completely naked, full on pubes, rolling around. Then there's a guy that's making out with the same model. They're all naked. You never see the guy's genitals, though, because, you can't do that, but you can see the whole naked woman. So you don't see the guy naked, I don't even think you see his ass, but he's there. And then at the end, Stacy Q walks in and throws something at him because how dare you, you know, be in a bed with the girl that I want to romp around with. I think Stacy Q's with the man in other scenes too. It's this whole like three-way thing, but they're only two at a time type of deal. It's called Screaming in My Pillow. Look it up. I don't think it's on, it might be on YouTube. I'm not sure. I should have looked that up before I, but the thing I saw it on was like a whole different thing. And so, yeah, total softcore. I mean, unabashed. And then they'll cut away to, you know, scenes of her just singing and the band playing their little keyboards or whatever. But yeah, I'm like, yeah, that's why I'm connecting sexiness with this whole thing and softcore 80s, because it literally is. And yeah, so if you ever wanted to see Stacy Q, you know, Two of Hearts, if you ever wanted to see her completely naked, there it is, 2 years before that song became a hit, or 3 years. So yeah, that's not all really sexy. There's a really dorky song on here called Walkman On, where she's got her Walkman on. I'll show the Walkman one more time on this video series. But yeah, so SSQ, it starts off really strong. It's got some really sexy kind of stuff going on for 1983 synth pop. I'm going to give this 3 stars. If they would have kept up that catchiness, though. You know what? I should give this 4 stars just for that video. If you're going to go fully naked in your own music video, similar to the way I was talking about Fee Waybill did with the Tubes, but that wasn't a 1983 video, though. But I'm going to give it 4 stars. Yeah, 4 stars. Because, I mean, if you're going to do sexy, do it. And she did it. Also in December of 1983, Dr. John released an album of just him and the piano. And this would be the second time he's pulled this. This one is called The Brightest Smile in Town. Now, I'm not really familiar with the other album, the earlier one where it's just him and the piano, but this one I've listened to a few times, and it's okay. It's great to hear Dr. John's voice. Big fan of the early work, especially Gree Gree, and then some of the hits too, like, you know, Right Place, Wrong Time, all that kind of stuff. I got all kinds of Dr. John albums, but never actually heard one where it's just him and the piano, and that's what this is. It starts off with a song called Saddled the Cow, which definitely sets the tone, some quirky little lyrics, him and the piano. You got, of course, the amazing Dr. John voice. But there's also instrumentals on here, like the second one, this nice little boogie-woogie tune called Boxcar Boogie, which up-tempo, he's boogieing along on the piano, you know, nothing mind-blowing or, you know, spectacular, earth-shattering or whatever, but it's nice, you know, hey, we're getting into it, cool. This is kind of like what Dr. John, it sounds like it's just him on a weekend. You know, I'm going to toss off this album on a weekend, you know, and get back to, you know, work or something, you know. It's like if you went in and you saw, you know, a New Orleans sort of pianist on a afternoon, Saturday afternoon at a club, and it just happens to be Dr. John. That's kind of what this album sounds like. Waiting for a Train's another nice one. Average kind of guy is fun. Got some nice lyrics in that one. You know, I love my kids, but I hate these bills. I'm low on love, but I'm high on pills. You know, it's that kind of a thing. I will say, too, that I also learned something from this album. I learned that the notorious Marie Laveau, who he sings about in the song Marie Laveau, and countless other songs people are singing about her, she is apparently buried in St. Louis. I had no idea. I always assumed she was buried in New Orleans. Now I know. Thank you, Dr. John. So it's about half decent, you know, but there's also instrumentals, like I said, and some of them, especially towards the end of the album, like Sweet Libby and Sweet Home New Orleans, and then Come Rain or Come Shine, or where there's a bunch of these really kind of lower, jazzy kind of piano things. Ain't nobody asked for that. And so it just kind of trails, you know, you're doing this. And so I'm going to give this 3 stars. Like I said, not on the level of something like Gree Gree or some magnificent album like that, or even some of his more up-tempo, you know, kind of gumbo boogie rockin' kind of stuff that he did in the 70s. I've said this 25 times at least in this long video series. And again, I'm going to say it about this album. If you've not heard any Dr. John albums, this would not be the one to start with. If you've heard them all, and you want something a little more low-key, a little more personal sound, you know, just him and the piano, maybe you want to check this out, but don't expect to be absolutely floored by this album. Dr. John, The Brightest Smile in Town. Again, I'm going to go ahead and give this 3 stars. And also almost forgot to talk about this thing. Sometimes I was playing around with this in the videos, and I realized that maybe some people don't even know what this is. This is a Rubik's Cube, which was really hot in the early 80s, 1983, you know, 82, whatever, 80, I don't know. But this was a little, you know, like thing that you twisted around like this. It started off, let me see if I can, looking like this. You know, and you could make these different designs with it, and you could, you know, this is how it started, like this. All the sides are the same color, right? And then you would mix it all up and hand it to somebody, and they would try to unscramble it and put it back like this. And some people, I mean, they had contests. They had people who could go like this, and it would be completely scrambled, and they'd be like this, and like 20 seconds later, it's like solved. And then there were people who were like, yeah, I don't, you know, 17 hours later, they'd be like, well, let me turn it. Okay, now this one's wrong. Let me tell you something. The easiest way to do, I found the secret. The easiest way to solve a Rubik's Cube and get it to all look like this again. There's stickers on here. You just take the stickers off and put them where they belong, and then you're done. But if you're just going to, because there's different ways to solve this. Some people just solved like one side. That was the easy way too. You just make one side. The rest of it all be scrambled, but you can get one side to be solid. What you want to make sure of is that you're not putting stickers like the same color stickers on an individual cube here, because that kind of gives away that you've been just taking the stickers off and putting them back on. But super easy way to do this. Takes no time at all. You just take the stickers right off and put them back to where the whole thing is where it should be. Now the wait is finally over, hearing that second album from the band from Bruges, Belgium, called Acid, and the album is called Maniac. Now if you've watched the entire series of my deep dive into 1983, you know that I reviewed their debut album, which also came out this year, earlier, and loved it. Absolutely, just was very fun. Was kind of, not really, I guess I wasn't mind blown. I just thought it was a great album. I gave it, I think, 5 stars. I thought it was just excellent. Very fun, very just kind of blasting out some hard rock, heavy metal, whatever. And was really looking forward to hearing the second one. I did the same thing with the Rock Goddess album, and they also had another album in 1983. And I wasn't quite as impressed with the second one, so I wasn't sure how. I kind of lowered my expectations for this second Acid album because I didn't want to raise them way up there and just to be disappointed. And it's pretty good. I do still prefer the debut over this one, Maniac, but this one is still a lot of fun. You still got those great vocals from Kate DeLambert, I think is how you say her last name. So yeah, the great album. Probably 4 stars, but still very worth your time and a lot of fun. It starts off with Max Overload, which isn't the best track on here, so don't just listen to that one and think, yeah, they kind of polished it up a little bit, kind of pulled the throttle back just a little bit on this one. Not full steam ahead. Not quite as raw sounding, but the songs do get better as it goes along. The two in the middle that are my favorites on here are Lucifera and No Time, with some great guitar riffing going on, a lot of energy. I think if you got the record or tape, they would come at the end of side 1, and a great way to close the side off. So yeah, great. They've got a song on here called Black Car, all about Satan's cars terrorizing everybody. Reminded me of one of my favorite 70s horror movies, The Car, with, of course, the black car going around and terrorizing everybody, including going right through a house. You know, terrorizing people at the school parade or whatever. If you've never seen The Car, you got to check this out. Starring James Brolin, and I can't remember Ronnie Cox is in this. I can't remember the woman's name right now, but the woman that's on the front of the Supertramp album, Breakfast in America, you know, the waitress, she is actually in this movie playing a very stuffy kind of, school, I guess, administrator, or maybe she's a teacher, just on a higher level, that, you know, doesn't want any nonsense, you know, like a Beulah Ballbreaker type. Not quite to that extreme, but she is actually in this movie as well. But anyway, back to the Acid album. Great stuff on here. You can probably skip over the track about drunk driving. You know, there's that. There's a track on here. One of the funniest tracks on here is called America. And that's the one where they're singing about, you know, I want to go to America, I'm gonna take it over, and they're gonna hear my music, you know, I'm gonna drink some Jack Daniel's whiskey, I'm gonna eat some bacon and eggs, you know, all these American things. And the best one, I want to get fucked in yellow on wheels. That's literally the lyric. And then she immediately explains, I mean a taxi cab. So, you know, people have goals when they go to different countries. I had goals going to Germany. Met quite a few of them. Didn't do all of them, you know, but save that for next time. But, you know, everybody has goals, and hers is to get fucked in a yellow cab going to the United States. Specifically New York City, I would assume. So there's that song that kind of like, okay. Great track at the very end called Exterminator that actually opens with this male voice. Silence! The demon has come along, you know, we will stop with the worship of false idols, or whatever he says, and then the song starts with this, you know, this nice guitar, you know, crunchy guitar riff going on there. So this is fun as well, a lot of fun. You know, great to hear this unique vocals from Kate, and they unfortunately this is the second of only 3 albums they had. The next one comes out in 1985. And so I'll be reviewing that if I ever get around to doing a 1985 deep dive. No promises on doing that, though, because there are a few other years before that coming up if I continue to do this. Thank you so much for watching these long deep dives. I hope it's as much of an adventure for you. But yeah, Maniac from Acid, like I said, I'm going to give this 4 stars. You definitely want to check out their first one first. And if you like, oh man, this is exactly what I love, then you want to hear this one. So in comparison to the other months, I don't think there's a lot of new releases that come out in December, especially December of 1983. That's probably because it's the holiday season. There's a lot going on. A lot of people are not thinking about putting out and producing and pressing albums. You got Christmas on the way. A lot of people buying records and tapes that aren't usually buying records and tapes, like the moms and dads and the aunts and uncles, and you know, buying them for the younger people or whatever, and they do that once a year, and so it's a good time to get rid of some of that stock that's been building up, previously released stuff. It's also a lot of times they will push compilation albums around the holidays. Of course, you have Christmas albums, and so really just you know, 2 videos are going to cover all of December of 1983, but there are 2 albums left. Going out with these 2 as we wrap up the deep dive into the chronological rating and reviewing of all of these albums from 1983. And the 2 albums each feature the P-Funk All-Stars. There's one that's credited to them that I'll talk about after this one. But first, this one is credited to just George Clinton, and it's called You Shouldn't Nuff Bit Fish. So yeah, I'm not a really big fan of George Clinton solo albums, even though they kind of aren't really solo. I mean, they still got a lot of the guys working with them. You've got Bernie Worrell on here. You've got Bootsy Collins. You've got the 2 guys from the JBs, Fred Wesley and Maceo Parker. They're also on the P-Funk All-Stars album coming up. But so yeah, you got a lot of the usual people involved in this album. And there's only 6 tracks, but they're lengthy. And like I said, I'm just not really that into George Clinton solo stuff. I much prefer the Funkadelic in Parliament. Not a big fan of the one that came out before this called Computer Games with Atomic Dog on it. Heard the story about Atomic Dog. George Clinton is just messed up at this point. I mean, Parliament Funkadelic people were always on something, you know, as the history goes. But this dude's just gone off the cliff at this point. You know, the story of the Atomic Dog recording session where it's really the producer and engineers that came up with that whole sound and everything. George Clinton just walks in the studio one day just out of his mind and just goes, the dog, and talking about the nasty dog. Why must I be the cat? But dog. And they had to put all of this effect on his voice just to make him sound present. And the story is that he came in the next day and like, all right, I'm here to record my vocal track. And they're like, you already did yesterday. What? I wasn't here yesterday. Yes, you were. We already laid it down. And it was those guys working with like drum machines and synthesizers and studio manipulation that came up with that whole sound. So anyway, I'm getting off track. But this album does not feature Atomic Dog. This album features Nubian Nut. That's the single. That's the song that starts the album. That is a rap song, and it's, you know, the 1983 version of rap where it's, you know, that really early kind of rap thing. And it's about this, I guess king in early times in Africa, and he's got people worshiping him, and he's just out there with the tigers and the rhinos and making it happen, I guess making people dance. It's not great. I don't come to Parliament and Funkadelic and P-Funk All-Stars for early 80s rap, but it's there, And then after that, kind of a forgettable track called Quickie. All about, oh, she just wants a quickie, Okay. The word quickie's funny, I guess. Last Dances after that, that's pretty cool. That's got a different vocal. That's got Bernie on it, and he's doing a great job as always. So that's a standout. Little milliliter or something like that, a millimeter or something is after that. I don't know. They're just all kind of there, really. The last track is the title track, and it sounds like they're trying to go a little more back into like a psychedelic thing like they used to do. Not way off, like, getting really into it like, something from the Free Your Mind album or something like that. But just kind of effects and things like that, making it a little more interesting. But overall, this is not a great album, to my ears anyway. I don't know how this did with critics. I don't know how this did with sales. I recognize the title. I've seen it a few places, but it's okay, I guess. It doesn't get you up and get you moving. I mean, that silly Millimeter song, I think, is supposed to be more of a funk throwdown, and it's kind of not. It's real mid-tempo, and the beats on this are not that hard. Funk, just bam, they're kind of smoothed over, and it's just, I don't know, 2 stars, I guess. I mean, it does not compare to the other album that was released at the same time for some reason. And I'm going to talk about that one now. Released at the same time as the George Clinton album I just talked about is the new album from the P-Funk All-Stars called Urban Dance Floor Gorillas. This was the first album that was ever credited to the name P-Funk All-Stars. Usually that was a touring name when members of Funkadelic and Parliament all got together and mixed it up and went out on the road. They would just be the P-Funk All-Stars, and that's what they were known as years after that. You rarely would see like a tour or a concert just credited to like Funkadelic, like in the 90s or whatever. So it was always the P-Funk All-Stars. But this was the first album that was credited to them called Urban Dance Floor Gorillas. And I had not heard this one before. I mean, I've heard Funkadelic albums, that's for sure. I think I have all of those. And especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, I used to listen to those like on repeat over and over. Parliament as well. I was into Parliament a little earlier because they're a little more of the mainstream. You get into Parliament, you're good with that, then you're ready to delve into Funkadelic. I was always a bigger fan of the middle Funkadelic albums than I was. I like the earlier ones that everybody else likes, like Maggot Brain, the more psychedelic stuff. That's great, but I always liked the middle ones a little more, that no one really talks about as much, like Standing on the Verge of Getting It On, where it's just a pure, hard, raw funk kind of stuff. This is more in that realm. It's 1983, so it's a little bit more polished, a little less way out freaky. And the first two or three tracks on here kind of threw me off. I was kind of like, yeah, this is okay, but it's a little soft, So don't put this album on and think that it's like that all the way through. It takes a while to pick up. The second track, especially, called Acupuncture. Man, it's got this jazzy saxophone in it, and this like soft jazz kind of feel. And the drumming is a little bit, little muted on there, and it's not just. I mean, they used to on my '70s albums. They were, funk is like it's called On the One. The beat of funk. Boom, boom. They would hit that one so hard. None of that here until we get more to like track 4 or so. Catch a Keeper. That's when the fire gets lit. That's when it's like, okay, this is Funkadelic. I do appreciate the fact that a lot of these drums are organic. They don't really fall into the trapping of the 1983 kind of cold-sounding robo-funk a lot. The synths that they do use are used to keep the bottom going. They're not this kind of bleepity-boopity stuff up here. It's more of that bottom feel. So they really, Pumping It Up is after that. Another great track. That one is more of like, got a little bit of that Funkadelic kind of wacky sound effects going on. Just a little bit, though. And then Copycat after that, which is great. You know, it's got the meow, 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 meow. And not only that, but it also throws a little bit in there from the Atomic Dog, you know, about do I chase the cat, you know. That's in there. Really fun stuff. The album continues after that. The fire's lit, though, on like I said, like track 4. That's when the fun really begins. First 3 tracks are just like, man, this is okay, but, you know, a little lackadaisical for Funkadelic. But thankfully, they pull it together, they get it going, and I'm going to give this 4 stars. I definitely think this is worthy of being in your Parliament Funkadelic collection. But just know that it, you know, it takes a while for it to get going. It's like it's a slow build on this one. Funkadelic, or the P-Funk All-Stars at this point, it's an insanely large cast of people. Of course, you have George Clinton, but you also have some great guitar work from Eddie Hazel in here. Bootsy Collins is in there with the bass. You got, you know, no Bernie, though. No Bernie Worrell. But you do have other people in here lending the hand, like Sly Stone is a part of this. Bobby Womack is in there somewhere. You got Fred Wesley and, you know, from the JBs. You got Mazio Parker from the JBs. So just a huge cast of people on this album. But it doesn't really sound like, it sounds just like raw, you know, kind of early 80s funk type stuff. Sounds great. I actually prefer this to the George Clinton album that came out at the same time. So I'm not sure what they were doing with that. They were out on 2 completely different labels, and then they went out on tour and played tracks from both, reportedly. So I'm not sure how they quite pulled that off, but they did, you know, from a legal standpoint. But yeah, great way to wrap up this entire series with a great album, throwing it all the way back to the 70s with the P-Funk All-Stars, because the 70s is where I'm going next with the deep dives. I'm still having fun doing this, so I'm going to keep doing it. And the next year is another big year for me because it was the year that I was born, 1972. The next huge deep dive, and man, is this going to be a fun one. I won't be able to do it chronologically because I don't have access to all the information of exact dates and when a lot of these really, now we're going way back to 72, so a lot of that information is lost. But or not accessible to me anyway. I'm talking about exact release dates. So it will be a ranking video. I haven't really decided yet exactly how many. It will be upwards in the 300s though, because 1972 kicks ass, and I want to do them all, and I want to just sink myself. I mean, this took almost a year to go all the way through 83. So it's going to be quite the undertaking, but I'm up for the challenge. I'm hoping you are too. It's not really a challenge, it's a labor of love, and all you get to do is just sit back and enjoy the fruits of it. Just enjoy me talking about, well, hopefully you're enjoying me talking about. What you really should be enjoying is checking out some of these albums that I'm talking about. But 1972 is going to be great. Of course, there'll be albums that you know and love or know and think are okay, but hopefully there'll be a lot that I can introduce you to as well and introduce myself to. I mean, 1972, obviously a great year for funk music, great year for rock music, guitar-driven rock, acoustic singer-songwriter stuff, and my beloved German progressive rock is in there as well, the Cosmic Musik. So yeah, I can't wait. 1972 is going to be a blast. And I'm hoping you join me for it. And again, I've said it before, I absolutely mean it. I can't say it enough. Thank you so much for checking out these videos. I know they don't get, you know, tons and tons of views. That's not why I do this. I do this for the fun. I do this for the discovery. I do this for people who are as passionate as I am, and back and forth conversations in the comments. And that's what I do it for. I don't do gimmicky videos that, you know, oh my God, I'll clickbait. This will get a bunch of views. I'm not into that. So people are, well, why are you doing this? These videos don't get as many views. That's not why I do it. I do it for the fun. I do it for the interaction. I do it for the discovery. That's it. And so I'm going to do it again with 1972. And just in case you're wondering, I mentioned this shirt. This will probably be the last time I wear this shirt for a while, because it is a 1983 reference. I mentioned it before, like if you know, you know, but I'm going to reveal it in case you don't know. This is a replica of the shirt that Michael Jackson wore in the Beat It video, and the second part of it when he's got the jacket on. And not the first part where he wakes up in his house or whatever, he's got like a piano keyboard shirt on. But this is a replica of the shirt that he has later on in the video. So that is the reference for 1983 with this particular shirt. I wish I could have worn the zipper jacket for this. I showed a photo of me having that jacket on when I was a kid, and unfortunately, that jacket rotted. I don't know what kind of cheap stuff that was made of, but the jacket actually rotted away. First it was the stitching in it, and then it was like the material itself, and it would it was cracking everywhere and cracking apart and whatever. So I sold it basically, and sold it, you know, as is. I don't know if you can polish this up or whatever, but I don't want this anymore because it's just going to get worse. Maybe move it on to somebody who can maybe do something with it. That was years and years ago. That was back in the early 2000s I did that. So, yeah, so that's why I don't have the jacket anymore, but got the shirt. It goes with it. Best I can do. So, once again, I'm Robert Fithen. Again, thank you so much, really, for being a part of this and joining me on this long, long journey through 1983. The long, long journey through 1972 is coming up next. Hopefully you will join me for that one as well.